You don't just get angry, you become someone else. And the worst part is, you think that version of you is the most honest one. And if that doesn't unsettle you yet, it should. Because your anger isn't random, it's targeted, precise. It shows up exactly where your identity is the most fragile, not where other people are wrong. Think about the last time it happened. Not the version you justified. The real one. You were in a conversation, something small, a comment, a tone, a look, and suddenly something in you tightened. Your chest, your jaw, your thoughts sped up. And before you could stop it, you were already reacting. Maybe you raised your voice. Maybe you shut down completely. Maybe you smiled. But inside, something was already breaking. But here's where it gets dangerous. You think they caused it. You think they triggered you. But your anger didn't start there. It started long before that moment. Because anger isn't just an emotion. It's a signal. A very precise one. And most people spend their entire lives misunderstanding it, while believing they understand themselves perfectly. You've been taught that anger is bad, something to control, suppress, hide. So you try, you breathe, you distract yourself, you walk away, but it keeps coming back, stronger, sharper, more convincing. That's not because you're failing, it's because you're ignoring what it's trying to reveal. And this is the part most people miss. Anger doesn't just show up when something happens. It shows up when something inside you feels exposed. Not physically, psychologically, your identity, your worth, your control. Someone interrupts you while you're speaking, and suddenly it's not just an interruption. It feels like disrespect, like you don't matter. So your anger steps in, not to hurt them, but to restore your position. Or at least, that's what your mind tells you. Here's the part no one tells you. Your mind isn't trying to tell you the truth. It's trying to protect you. And sometimes, that means lying. Because what triggers you reveals what you're trying to defend. You don't react equally to everything. You react to very specific things. Criticism, rejection, being ignored, being controlled, being misunderstood. Why those? Why do those hit harder? Because somewhere, quietly, beneath the surface, you already feel unstable there, and your anger is covering it. Let's make this real. You send a message. They take hours to reply, and your mind starts filling the silence. They don't care. I'm not important. They're ignoring me on purpose. And by the time you notice it, it's already too late. You're already irritated, already distant, already reacting. But here's what actually happened. The anger came after. It wasn't the first reaction. It was the mask. Because underneath it was insecurity. And it gets worse than that. The more you trust that anger, the more your brain reinforces it. It builds a version of reality where you're always right, where your reactions are justified, where everyone else is the problem, even when they're not. Or imagine this. Someone gives you feedback, not harsh, just honest. But something in you snaps. You feel attacked. You defend yourself instantly. You explain, justify, push back. Not because they were wrong, but because something in what they said exposed something real. And that truth felt threatening. So anger stepped in, not to protect reality, but to protect your identity. This isn't just your reaction. It's your pattern. And at some point, it stops being something you feel and starts becoming who you are. This is where it gets dangerous. Because anger doesn't just react, it rewrites. It edits your perception in real time. It convinces you that you're seeing clearly while quietly distorting everything. It tells you they disrespected you. It tells you they meant harm. It tells you your reaction is necessary. And sometimes it is, but not always. And if you never question it, You start living inside a version of reality designed to protect your ego, not reveal the truth. Your relationships shift, your trust breaks, your perception narrows, and slowly, you don't even notice the change. Here's the twist. The people who seem the calmest aren't the ones who don't feel anger. They're the ones who don't believe it blindly. They pause. Not because they're better, but because they've seen what anger does when you don't. They don't ask, why did they do that? They ask something much more uncomfortable. Why did that affect me this much? That question cuts deeper than anger ever will. Because now, instead of projecting outward, you're forced to look inward, and what you find there isn't always something you want to face. Sometimes it's insecurity, sometimes it's fear, sometimes it's something older, something you've been carrying for years. That's why the same situations keep triggering you. It's not about what's happening now, it's about what it reminds you of. You're not reacting to the present, you're reacting to a pattern, and anger is just the surface. But most people never go deeper. They attack the messenger, suppress it, ignore it, or explode with it. And every time they do, they stay exactly where they are. And this is the part most people avoid. Anger is rarely the first emotion. It's the second, sometimes the third. It comes after something weaker, something more honest, hurt, fear, shame. But those emotions feel dangerous in a different way. They expose you. So your mind replaces them with anger, because anger feels powerful, controlled, safe. It gives you direction. Fight, withdraw, create distance. But underneath all of that, there's something much harder to face. And you don't stay there long enough to see it. You move too fast. From trigger to reaction. From discomfort to defense. No space in between. And that space is where the truth lives. So what would happen if you didn't react immediately? If instead of raising your voice, you paused, just for a second, and asked yourself something simple. What am I actually feeling right now? Not the version you want to believe, the real one. Because most of the time, it won't be anger. It'll be something you've been avoiding. And here's the part that makes most people stop. If you remove the anger, you lose the shield. You feel everything underneath it. The doubt, the fear, the insecurity. That's why people hold on to anger, not because they want it, but because they need it. Or at least, they think they do. But that protection comes with a cost, because the more you rely on anger, the less you understand yourself, and eventually, you start reacting to everything. Not because everything is a threat, but because your mind has learned to see it that way. A comment becomes an attack. A delay becomes rejection. A disagreement becomes disrespect. And slowly, you stop seeing clearly. You just react, over and over again. Not because of the world, but because of the story your mind keeps telling you. And anger is just the voice that makes that story feel true. But alarms aren't meant to run forever. They're meant to wake you up. And then, you're supposed to look at what triggered them, not silence them, not trust them blindly. Understand them. Because once you do, something shifts. You start noticing patterns. You start catching yourself. You start seeing what's really there. And that clarity is uncomfortable. Because now you can't blame everything on other people. Now you see your role, your triggers, your distortions. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. Which means the next time that anger rises, you'll feel it differently. Not as truth, but as a signal. And the question is, when that moment comes, will you still believe it? Or will you finally see what it's been hiding from you this whole time?